There is no excuses now. This summer has to be the summer.
I don't see a win at all cost ownership.
You've got to go for it. You've got to get some money in. One thing we've never done is get money in the summer.
For me, is the biggest success of this season is that we all now care and we've fallen in love again, and unfortunately love does hurt.
Said we'll only know how good this season is next season.
We've had so many moments this season, but it just ends with nothing.
Team pattern collapsed and we still can't defend properly.
If you're asking, are the Kroenkes backing Arsenal and have they backed them enough? Yes, they are.
I don't even know how you can say that, Julian.
Is he the manager that can win us a Premier League and a Champions League?
I personally think him with this ownership, the collective, I don't think he wins.
Everyone, welcome back to AFTV. Arsenal season is all but over, and there have been lots of highs, but lots of lows towards the end of the season, and we want to discuss it all because Arsenal have come on leaps and bounds this year. I don't think anyone here at this table disagrees with that, but have they come far enough, and what's more to do to get that one place further and finally win the Premier League title and be a team, be an elite club that can compete with the very best, not just in this country, but in Europe. Lots to get into. We're going to start from the very beginning, all the way back in the summer. A load of us were out there watching the pre-season. We were left feeling, I think, really enthused, and rightly so. I think that translated through the season. But we're going to discuss how it progressed after that and where we are now. Welcoming everyone here to discuss it, Mr. Chris Hudson.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the table, Turkish.
Legend.
Welcome, Turkish. We have Julian. He always wants an extra loud clap. And of course we have Curtis. See you. How you doing?
Finally back.
Finally back. It's good to have you back, man. Let's start with you. Because, like I said, we were out there in Orlando, and for anyone who hasn't seen the vlogs when we were out there, a lot of tongue-in-cheek, kind of, you know, we're battering Chelsea, and there you are saying, I'm trusting the process, I'm believing.
I never actually said that on camera, but you just baited me out now.
Oh, sorry. But look, we're having fun with it because Arsenal were having a lot of fun, and I think it's fair to say that fun continued all the way up to the World Cup and beyond. But I think that period before the World Cup was pretty special, and it did start in pre-season.
Yeah. I think there was just a feeling out there that something was different. It's like it just clicked, and I think seeing Jesus and Zinchenko out there, it felt like we'd signed a couple of game changers. Some of the transfer windows before, I'd been like, you know, I've got to go on Google and find out who the guy is or watch him on YouTube. So seeing them two coming, it was like they lifted the mentality, and I felt like we'd have a much better season. Probably was better than I expected, but I think up until the World Cup, you know, it felt like something really good, and probably beyond the World Cup as well. It was just we've run out of steam at the end, but I think that summer window really gave us that feeling something was going to happen. Yeah,
Chris, let's bring you in because we haven't spoken to you in a while. And Arsenal, you know, they started with that momentum. They carried on from pre-season and they got that 5 wins on the bounce. Then we lose at Old Trafford, but then they respond. And we started to see Arsenal responding to, you know, the game under the lights in the evening at Palace, and then going to Brentford where we'd struggled. And actually every team has struggled there since, and we got the win there. You know, was there a point early on in those first 5, 6, 7 games that you started to think, okay, this isn't just an Arsenal team that we're hoping will get over the line for top 4. We can start thinking a little bit more than that.
Brentford.
It was Brentford.
I went to that game and I thought we played really well. It was a wonderful performance. Leeds, where we got battered, but we still come out with 3 points. So there was a lot of optimism. We had no injuries. We was playing some fantastic football. Then we got to the World Cup. Even after the World Cup, we did okay. But then, obviously, things which were discussed later got a little bit dodgy.
We're going to have to go into all that. Turkish, the enthusiasm we had from the start of the season, you know, and then what we saw. Like I keep saying pre-World Cup because I think there's stuff to talk about from the World Cup onwards. So I'll sort of put that marker in there.
Yeah.
But do you think your enthusiasm has been justified, even if it hasn't ended the way we all hoped and wanted? Do you think the enthusiasm from pre-season ultimately was justified in the season we've had?
Probably most enjoyable season for quite a long time. Listen, part of my enthusiasm in America was being in Orlando, being around the pre-season tour for the first time, and just enjoying the moment, and Arsenal actually moving proactively in the window. One thing I've always called for with Arsenal is get players in and get them in early. Because we were always slow in the transfer window. We'd always wait until the last week and then maybe one or two names come through the door. This time around, it seemed like we was getting the bulk of our transfer dealings done quite early. So that was part of the enthusiasm. And when you look at the season, leading the majority of the way, big moments throughout. I'm going to go to what Chris said. And that Brentford game is when I really thought, shit, this team has changed. They are very different. Because I always went into the season saying, we need to win the first 5 games. This is, the third full season now. I looked at the 5 fixtures and said, we need to win those 5. Non-negotiable, as Arteta would like to say. And I'm sure he was saying the same thing. Then it comes to Man United, and that's a big test. And, the first Big 6 fixture away from home, how are we going to fare? Didn't fare well. But the way we bounced back against Brentford was a big moment for me as an Arsenal fan, because it was like, shit, clean sheet. Dominant performance. Vieira stepped in and done a good job. He got a goal in that game as well. So I thought, all right, we might be onto something here. Never did I think we're going to win the league, especially during those times. But it was good to be back in the conversation, to say the least, because I always thought Arsenal need to be in the conversation in terms of challenging for the Premier League year in, year out. And this is the first year we can say that, as people that do content around Arsenal and football.
That's very true. And Julian, we've gone, August, September, October, November. So I think you've got 4 months there where I think it's a fair statement to say Arsenal were the best team in the country.
Well, they absolutely were the best team in the country because we were top of the league. So there was no doubt about it. And
I mean, it only been 14 games before the World Cup. And when you kind of look at that now, how much football we've played since, it feels more weighted 50-50. Obviously it wasn't. But that early on, I think Arsenal had done enough to make that claim.
Yeah, I mean, they had done it. And for me, like Turkish, it started in pre-season. I remember the atmosphere in Orlando. Yes, we were having a great time. We were enthused by the people that were around us and the reception that we got. But there were 2 things that were entirely different about that pre-season to the pre-season from the previous season, which was, number one, the signings that we brought in early. They were players that we did know about and we did want and we did need. And the other thing was the performance. Yes, we were expected to beat Everton. We were expected to beat the Orlando team, although something we shouldn't forget is that Orlando were used to those conditions, and anyone that was out there will testify to the humidity was quite incredible, and the fact that they were in the middle of their seasons, they were not only more acclimatised, but they were also in their season, so their fitness levels were higher. But then when we played Chelsea, I think was the biggest kind of reinforcement for us that something was different. In hindsight, we were wrong because none of us realised how bad Chelsea were actually going to be. But at the time, Chelsea were considered to be one of the teams that were going to be challenging for the title. We were wrong, but we came away from that pre-season with this far more positive outlook.
Mm-hmm. Look, there's still so many positives from the season. I think it's only right, because of how far we've come, that we do touch on more of them. I want to ask everyone's sort of best player, their player of the season so far. Well, so far, 2 games to go. Curtis, you?
It's a tough one. There's 2 or 3. I think early in the season, everyone was saying Saliba, but I think as the season's finished, I would probably say Odegaard. Okay. Because he's a player that I had a lot of question marks over. I often said he goes missing in big games away from home. He gets bullied, doesn't get on the ball enough. And then he got the captain's armband as well, which I thought, is he really captain material? But I think this year, along with probably De Bruyne, he's the best attacking midfielder in the league this year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Anyone else for Odegaard?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. And Odegaard, Odegaard as well. Similar
I
reason.
would have said Saka, but last month he sort of tailed off because mainly he's running on empty. But we'll get on to that later.
Yeah, and Odegaard for you, same reasons.
Yes, the same reasons. I still think it's interesting that you make the comparison with De Bruyne, and I think he's the closest that we've got to De Bruyne. But the difference is De Bruyne is in his peak. I don't think he's getting any better from his age, and Odegaard is, I think, still 24. And he's only getting better, and his leadership qualities as well. I mean, I question, is he the right character to be a captain? But one thing for me, he's proved that he is.
Yeah, Turkish.
Odegaard's a fair shout, and if I'm being fair, then it'd probably be Odegaard. But for me, maybe a bit of a favoritism here. Martinelli
Martinelli's
deserves a
mine.
mention. And it's funny because prior to international break, like Chris said, I did a top 5 Arsenal players of the season, and Saka was first. But there were still games to play. And I think when you look at the attack, especially at the business end of the season, Martinelli's the one that stood tallest.
Yeah.
And when you consider his age, the amount of goals he scored in the league, and how, I won't say underrated, but under talked about is probably the better way to put it.
Yeah, great way to put it.
I feel like I'm going to give him his flowers and say, for me, it's Martinelli.
Yeah, I'm with Martinelli for that thing you said, that when the going got tough, he stepped up. He looked like he got better under the pressure of a run-in. And you can make an argument for Saliba, Xhaka, Saka, Odegaard, loads of players. Zinchenko and Jesus, how transformative they've been. Gabriel's been an absolute rock. I mean, Ben White has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Ramsey. I mean, genuinely, you can make an argument for almost any of them. But Martinelli, for what you just said there. All right, so let's go through everyone's favourite moment of the season. I know we're feeling a bit blue after the way it's ended, but I don't know, a moment that made you believe, a moment of just pure euphoria. Villa. Real was it? Was that the
I'll
moment?
never forget that, especially the scenes in the away end. That was amazing.
Were you there? Were you in the away? I was in the away end as well. It was
Juninho,
unbelievable.
That shot went off. What's his name?
Martinez.
I tell you what, that was
yeah.
a great moment. I couldn't have, I celebrated, I laughed, everything, and then with City following that up with the draw with Forest. That was a great day. Anyone?
It's got to be Reece Nelson.
Yeah.
Because that game was gone as far as I was concerned, and for him to score that goal as well, what a finish. And yeah, that one for me. I think I like the Eddie goal against Man United as well, because it was Man United, and, you know, but I go Reece Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have to pick a moment, it would be the Reece Nelson goal, because I've never experienced anything like that at that stadium. Yes, I've experienced it at other stadiums, but in all the years I've been there, and how long has it been now? Sort of 14, 15, 16 years, that was the moment that I would say was the greatest moment at that stadium. If you're looking at games, probably Tottenham away or Newcastle away for a game as a whole.
Yeah, and Turkish.
Tottenham away for me.
Yeah.
It was so long since we've beaten them there, and the way we beat them as well, on top of everything, was just perfect.
Yeah, Tottenham away.
Thing is, there's so many.
Yeah.
So that's a
That's a good
And that's
thing.
what makes it
And
so
we're arguing
heartbreaking.
about how many there is. See,
That's what makes it so heartbreaking, that these moments, these late goals, haven't, I don't want to say they've amounted to nothing. Getting second place from fifth, it's still something. We're still coming away with something we haven't had in previous years. But it did feel with that, the late winner against Villa, the late winner against Bournemouth, the late winner against United, they all came within a month, 5-6 weeks of each other. You did start to think, sure.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
But it is moments that they can't take away from us. Yes, it hasn't ended up with what we all wanted, which was the trophies, but you still enjoy those moments, and I still look back with a smile on my face. Everything we've mentioned so far, the win at Tottenham, the goal, the last minute goals actually at Villa, and of course that Reece Nelson moment, they're still what you go to football. Not everyone can win, but not everyone has those kind of moments either. The intensity of those moments was terrific, because actually competing is a joy in itself, and that's something we haven't had as Arsenal fans over the last decade or so, is that we haven't been able to compete. We haven't been able to even realistically believe that we can do it. And I mean, one thing this season's given us is that belief that we are competing.
So
we've had criticism for Arsenal being overjoyed, over-celebrating.
Yeah.
What do we make of that? Now that we know how it's gone, do we think there's something to it?
Richard Keys.
What was he saying it? Oh, he was, wasn't he, after Fulham?
He's always on at Arteta.
Yeah. That's true.
Arsenal fans. Then the fantastic Gary Neville Monday night. So the reason why we didn't win the league, because an Arsenal player driving past the pub giving it laughs.
Yeah, rubbish.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what football's about.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone else?
I think it shows that we're doing well again, because when we were struggling, you never heard these
No one
guys
cared.
talking about us. Now we're doing well. Everybody's irritated by us. So I think that's a good thing.
Gary Neville went back and forth. Well, I say back and forth. He quote tweeted Tim Stillman, because Tim was critical of his punditry, and rightly so. I thought he responded brilliantly. But then Gary came back and said, seeing these moments, I'm filling in the blanks. of what's gone on behind the scenes. But that tells you, it's like you're filling in the blanks. Like, I don't mind if publicly Zinchenko is giving it all with the fans, singing outside the Tollington. You know, when we score a goal, he goes mad. As long as, because I think there is something to behind the scenes. I don't want that kind of, I do want the calmer head behind the scenes, but I've got no reason to think that there isn't that behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've talked about celebrations in previous years. The Lacazette Crystal Palace one comes to mind. Was it Crystal Palace? The last minute equaliser.
Yeah.
Giroud in a 3-3 scored the equaliser, and he's flicking at his legs. For me, those moments there, I'm just like, what are you lot doing? Go get the ball and put it in the centre circle. We've got points to win.
That was the worst celebration.
He was flicking his leg up, and Sanchez is grabbing the ball. Come on.
We've been through some fucked up times.
We have.
Pardon my language, but we have.
Yeah.
But this season, I look at the celebrations and I look at what we've done, like what we did throughout the season, and to maintain a challenge, I'd say, towards the latter stages, the last 5-6 games of the season. It's okay. It's more than okay to celebrate those moments.
Yeah.
Because you, at that moment in time, you think it's moments that's going to get you to the biggest moment you've had, either as an Arsenal fan if you're young, or one of the biggest moments you've had as an Arsenal fan, because I've seen us win the title. Well, everyone on this table has seen us win the title, so it would have been one of. So you've got to live for the moment. You've got to enjoy the moment you're in. But these moments as well, in my opinion, as an Arsenal fan, are not remembered as much as moments in seasons like 03-04, 01-02, 97-98. Reason being because those moments in those seasons led to the biggest moments I've had as an Arsenal fan. Yeah. This time round, I look at it like, am I going to tell my son about the moments in this season, or am I going to tell him about the moments that led to the biggest moments?
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating about it, because we've had so many moments this season, but it just ends with nothing. And it just feels like we fell flat at the end.
Yeah. I hear that. And speaking of in the moment, Curtis.
Here he goes.
No, look, I'm not going to pretend I didn't. I took issue with your tweet about the Kroenkes. I'm not an arsehole on Twitter who felt the need to, abuse you for it. We'll have a good discussion about it. And for anyone who hasn't seen what you had to say, you basically, were questioning whether the Kroenkes did everything they could to... Well, okay, no, I'm paraphrasing. What you basically said was, we're not going to win anything big with the Kroenkes.
The biggest trophies.
With the Kroenkes. January came around, and in that moment, it felt like Arsenal foresaw an opportunity that they just couldn't miss out on. And so they brought players in, even if they were just for the now, the Jorginhos, the Trossard. And then Kivior came in, which I think was a surprise to all of us.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that tweet and that comment? Because it pissed off a few people.
Yeah. No, listen, for me, the Kroenkes, since they've took full ownership, they've done better than what they were doing previously. There's no doubt about that. But it's just, for me, there's certain moments where I look at them and I think, you've got an opportunity to go all out here and try and do something. I look at last January when we should have got top 4. Oba left. I think Xhaka was injured. El Neni and Partey went to AFCON. I felt like we could have got Bruno Guimaraes easily. He was talking about the club. We never signed anybody. Ultimately, we ended that season. We missed out on top 4. This January, very similar, except obviously we're a bit higher. I looked to that January window, and I know we spoke about it a lot when it happened, but I was underwhelmed by that window. I thought Trossard was a smart signing. They reacted to a situation when Mudryk didn't happen. Kivior, to me, from the lack of game time, it's looked like Arteta has looked at him as he's a future signing, when I think we needed a centre-back for now. Because it's too risky to think, well, Gabriel and Saliba, they'll get me through the season. You needed somebody that could come in and play if one of them came out. Holding played, wasn't good enough in the end.
Yeah.
You look at midfield, you look at the way Partey's ran out of legs at the end of the season. Xhaka's had a pretty good season, but we signed Jorginho. Jorginho, to me, he's a decent squad player. He's not going to win you a title. Not at this stage in his career. So for me, I think they've improved. I think they're making progress, similarly to the club really overall. But I don't see a win at all cost ownership. When I look at Man City, I think they're trying to win at all costs. Sometimes they're probably even going too far with it. We won't talk about them allegations. But, even with Liverpool, when they came in, their owners had their moments where it was like, you've got to go and get Alisson, you've got to get Van Dijk. You know, they got players in, even if they overpaid. Everyone was saying Van Dijk too expensive. Now nobody talks about that because he's been that good. Chelsea owner's a bit wild, but you can't knock his ambition in terms of finances, even though it hasn't worked. So for me, I look at the Kroenkes, I think they are probably running a smart ship financially, and, you know, they're trying to tick over, but I don't look at them and think they're going to win Arsenal a Champions League. You know, I think even the Premier League for me, I think probably we've overachieved this year. If you look at the start of the season, I don't think we're in a title race because of what the Kroenkes have 100%. Done. I think Arteta's coaching is improving of them young players have given us an opportunity.
I'm with him. The time is now for them, and by now I mean this transfer window, because Curtis is right. When you look at the outlay over the last 3.5-4 years, when did they take on full ownership? 2018.
That's what, I think
we break the transfer record with Nicolas Pepe. Cool. I thought that was a great signing at the time. Didn't turn out to be. We've spent money over those years, more than we had spent previously. So I guess that showed a change from the Kroenkes. But it was never money to suggest that we would improve, in my opinion, at the rate we have improved. So now that we're back to square one, and I keep saying back to square one, and some Arsenal fans are annoyed by that, because they feel like we're better than we was when we initially fell out with the Kroenkes. And by we, I mean the fans that kind of turned on them. But the fact of the matter is, I fell out with the Kroenkes, or I turned on them when we was in Champions League. Whether that's second or fourth, it was making Champions League football. They failed to build on that. So now is their chance to prove that they have changed, that they have learnt from their failings of the past. I won't just call it mistakes of the past, because it wasn't necessarily a mistake. I just think that's the way they wanted to own the club. They didn't want to invest much. They had other priorities, other franchises to focus on. Now it seems like it's our turn. Arteta's done everything to get us to where we are. Now, the one thing I give Kroenkes credit for is keeping Arteta during some of the worst times as an Arsenal fan, some of the worst runs as an Arsenal fan. They stuck by him, and credit to them for that. That's the one piece of credit I can give them in the 20 years they've been here. I don't give a shit about full ownership, half ownership, part ownership. I don't care, because since they came in, they've been on the board. They've had a say on things. In comparison to an Usmanov who comes in, owns 30%, isn't allowed on the board. So they've always had a bit more room to maneuver at the club, regardless of 100% ownership or not. Now you've got 100% ownership. Josh always talks about judge us from 2018, having taken full ownership. Arteta's brought us back into Champions League. We was on the cusp of a Premier League title. Our wage bill is clear in comparison to 3 years ago. There is no excuses now. This summer has to be the summer. It has to be the summer that we move like the big club we are. Because in my opinion, in the transfer windows, Arsenal have never moved like the big club we are. And yes, that has brought some success, of course. The Premier Leagues that I've seen us win. It's not like we went out and bought left, right and centre and spent a hell of a lot of money to get those Premier Leagues. It was just some shrewd recruitment from Wenger, and it was a new dawn in terms of football at that time. And Wenger was a big part of that, and especially in the Premier League. Now, it's time. They talk the talk. It's time to walk the walk.
But did you feel that the Kroenkes did anything that limited our chances of winning this year's title?
Well, you can go back to January and say, if you have that amount of money to spend on a Mudryk, which is close to 100 million, and we made that offer, then I like Trossard, and I like that we bought Trossard. But the fact of the matter is, where's all the other money? It's similar to last January, where we bid 70 million for Vlahovic. We didn't get him. Where did that money go?
Interestingly, though, in the January transfer window, I read the other day that the Kroenkes were prepared to go the full way to get Mudryk or Caicedo from Brighton. It was Arteta who said no.
Really?
And they do, yeah, because you'll disrupt. They didn't. If you wanted 120 million.
So there was a level that Edu and Arteta weren't willing to go to.
And they said no to the Kroenkes. I thought was a bit interesting. And that
is interesting.
So that takes us to the summer. This is where I do agree with Turkish. They really have got. We can't rest on our laurels.
No.
You've got to go for it. You've got to get some money in. One thing we've never done is get money in the summer. When's the last time? What's the highest? When's the last time we sold anyone for money?
We finally have players with stock now.
Yeah. So it's all. But I don't want to be selling players for the sake of it. Perhaps we get onto that.
Yeah, well, I think transfer we definitely do need to cover. Julian, you do defend the Kroenkes even when things were going bad. Not that you think they're perfect, but I think you appreciate some of their work.
Yeah, no,
I put it politely.
No, I appreciate a lot of their work, but again, I mean, you've mentioned Curtis comparing them with Manchester City owners. They're not.
Well, I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying the ambition level of ownership.
Yeah, well, that's comparing them. Now, if you want them to compete with a nation state, then they're not going to. Now, the ambition and the reasons why they're involved with Arsenal are entirely different to why, in my opinion, the reasons why the owners of Man City are involved with them. The Kroenkes, like it or lump it, are business people. They're in this game to make money. Now, that is the reality. We can argue the morals behind that, but the reality for me is the Kroenkes are here to make money. They're not just going to carry on spending if they can't see a return. That's just the reality of the situation. When I look at the last 2 transfer windows, I think we've spent as a club £168 million, which to me is a phenomenal amount of money. Second to that is the financial situation Arsenal are in. I think the last set of accounts we lost £45.5 million. The year before that we lost something like triple that, which was probably down to COVID. That had a big effect of it. So if you're asking, are the Kroenkes backing Arsenal and have they backed them enough? I would say if you take the situation that they find themselves in, then yes, they are. Did they do enough before 2018? And again, that's another question. They were inexperienced. They made massive mistakes. They let Arsene Wenger probably take far bigger role in the running of the club than he should have done. We praised Arteta about that's the reason why we're in the situation that we're in. But there's 2 things. Not only did they not sack Arteta, but they were the people that ultimately decided that Arteta was here. So everything that's good about the club, you can ultimately put back to the Kroenkes. Everything that's bad about the club, you can put back to the Kroenkes because they're the ones that make the ultimate decision. So to say that, it's nothing to do with the Kroenkes, it's to do with Arteta, to me, the 2 are absolutely combined because they're the ones that put Arteta in place.
You mentioned 168 mil. For a Man City, that's 2 players. For a Man United, that's 2 players. For a Chelsea, that's 2 players. These are the teams we're competing with. So 168 mil is not an outlay where you can say, if we spend 168 mil this summer, we're going to go and win the league or challenge again. It's not enough in this climate. And yes, it's a lot of money, without a shadow of a doubt, it's a lot of money. But whose fault is it that they've waited this long to start really investing? You take into account inflation over the last 20 years. What once cost 50 mil 20 years ago costs 150, 200 mil now. That's just, and it's their fault that it's taken this long. And you say all the good that's happened to Arsenal comes from the Kroenkes. I completely disagree. I don't even know how you can say that, Julian, because the fan base we have is not because of the Kroenkes. The Hale End is not because of the Kroenkes. The reason we challenged for the Premier League this year is not because of the transfer window last year. It's not because of January. It's not because of the window the year before. It's because of Arteta being shrewd in the market. When Ben White came in, when Ramsdale came in, I didn't expect them to come and elevate the club. They did. So that's why I put most of the credit on where we are now on Arteta, not on the Kroenkes, because I just don't see. To be fair, we haven't been in Champions League since they've taken full ownership. That's one thing. That's why I say this summer's so big, because there's no excuses. Every other summer they've had the excuse of a Europa League team, a Champions League wage bill. We've heard all of this as well. Now we've got a Europa League wage bill with a Champions League team. So now is the time to see if they've really changed. And if they come out this summer and they do what they should, and that's 250 million minimum 250 million, then I'll put my hands up and say it looks like they're changing. It looks like they're changing. Don't rest on your laurels.
I just think that Arsenal and their title charge this season, do I think the Kroenkes did everything they could to help that title charge? in my opinion, it's always hard to say everything they could. You know, you could have spent 300 million, but yeah, I think they probably did. I think they tried to get Mudryk, and interesting what you say about that, but ultimately he's not looking good at Chelsea, and we went for Trossard, and I'm happy with how that saga ended up for us at the moment. We'll see how Mudryk develops. But they tried for Caicedo. They were unequivocal, Brighton. We are not selling him. It's not happening. Then I sort of read today as well that they actually did even look at Rice in January, but that just was never going to happen. So they came out with other replacements. And I know Kivio, as you say, you know, maybe we needed a better, more experienced centre-back. I didn't even think we were going to go for a centre-back that January. So the fact we even came out with a £20 million exciting centre-back that Lewandowski has heaped praise on, you know, you think, okay, well, even that's a little bit more than I expected. So when you hear that Arteta was supposedly really happy with the window, you look at the squad we were left with, and actually then you look how the next 3 months go, apart from that one patch before the Man City home game where we hit some poor momentum. Largely, I look at this last run of 7 results, where we've only got 2 wins, and I think Arteta had everything, and that team had everything to go and do much better in that run-in. So, could the Kroenkes have done more? Maybe they could have, but realistically, I don't think we fell short, and my eyes are going towards the Kroenkes.
My thing is that there's always that. There's every year, whether it's we're missing out on top 4, whether it's finishing 8th, or whether it's this season finishing 2nd, because that's where we're going to finish. There's always that what if. What if in January you pushed the ball out a bit and got Caicedo in? Yes, we don't know. What if last year you got Vlahovic, or then re-spent the money on a Bruno Guimaraes, for example? What if? I'm tired of the what ifs now. Do what you need to do, because that's not necessarily going to be enough.
They'll always exist while we don't go over the line. So it's so funny because we have got Champions League football this year at an absolute canter. We've walked Champions League. But last year was such a big thing. Will we get it? Will we get it? The bar has changed thanks to Arteta and these players and all that ultimately we've fallen short of the Premier League. But the reality is we might still be a brilliant team for the next 5 years and still fall short of the Premier League. So will it always be that the Kroenkes didn't do enough?
No, because you can have what if he didn't get injured. That's nothing on Kroenke.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about what
if they don't have the correct backup. But then the other thing is, what if we'd got Mudryk, and then your favourite player of the season, Martinelli, he basically plays in his position. Now, Martinelli, you know, I said Odegaard, you said Martinelli. I was pretty close to saying Martinelli. I think Martinelli is a fabulous player. If you spend 100 million on Mudryk, he's not going to be on the bench for long. Not at Arsenal. He might be on the bench at Chelsea, but not at Arsenal. What does that do to Martinelli, a player that's probably performing, well, almost undoubtedly performing at a far higher level than Mudryk? So what if we'd gone for Mudryk, we'd bought him for 100 million, and then Martinelli tails off, and we do even worse? So it's not all about just spending money. Look at Chelsea. That is the greatest example of how spending money isn't always the answer.
That's the other extreme.
They've spent 600 million and they've come 11th.
Because
they look good.
But the thing, if we're going to go what if, I could say what if Tierney and Partey never got injured last year, we would have come 4th. What if Saliba hadn't stupidly was played against Sporting Lisbon? Why did the Arteta go full strength for that game? That's when, you know, even said, where did it all go wrong? It went wrong within 30 minutes. Saliba went off with a back injury. He got it Fulham the previous game. And why was he playing in that game? I was the question I answered. And Tomiyasu went. Bang. Little did we know.
Don't you think that Julian there is saying about Mudryk coming in and Martinelli? I think that's personally an attitude we've got to get away from in terms 100%. Of thinking you're in the team, we can't bring a star player in that position, because you've seen with the monster we're up against that they've got 2 players in every position. Now, I know that costs a lot of money to get to that point, but the successful Arsenal teams back in the day, you know, you might have had an Henry, you had a Wiltord, you had a Kanu, you had... So I think that's something that's cost Saka's form towards the end of the season, because there's no competition. He's 21 years of age and he knows if I'm fit, I'm playing every week.
So let's bring in the transfer stuff then, because it still captures everything we're saying about the Kroenkes and what's expected now. I'm personally of the belief, I've made it clear in the show, that I can't really look at the Kroenkes. Not when the signings did come in and Arteta was happy, and I think other things like injuries went wrong. But there's a big opportunity, as you said, now for this summer. You mentioned we need to get away from this, actually, how will this person feel if that player comes in, whatever. But within, 1 week of serious rumours for Declan Rice, with Granit Xhaka basically announces he's leaving. So there's a lot of work to do to ensure that we do have serious quality and depth in all these positions, because the Champions League is going to demand it. Last thing you want is to fall out the group stage after all this work. So big summer.
It's a massive summer. Well, let's be honest, Granit Xhaka leaving, I don't think is a big problem for Arsenal. When we signed him, we'd just come out of the Champions League. We haven't been back since. I think we've got to be harsh now and say, is this player going to go in the Champions League, take us back to the next level? I think Xhaka's leaving in the right way. You've had a good season, you've hit 30, you're not going to get any better at this point. I don't think he is a player that will take us deep into the Champions League. So I think we need to put pressure on some of these players and say, look, Saka, you are a great young player, but this is Arsenal and you're not guaranteed to start, especially if you hit a bad run of form, because I think that kind of hunger keeps young players going and fighting to get in the team. So I think we do need to have because we always say we're the Arsenal, we're a massive club, great history, big fan base. But then there's times when we have to act like that and we're a bit too nice. Give El Neni a new contract because he trains well. Keep Holding there because, he's a nice guy. And you've seen with Pep, Cancelo, bad attitude gone straight away. He's a top quality fullback. Now, I know I'm talking about Man City, and as he said, state-owned, it is a lot different. But we've seen Klopp win every trophy, and Liverpool are not state-owned. So there is another way of doing it away from the Man City
that's very true
as well.
And I just want to say, I'm not blaming the Kroenkes for the way this season's ended. I'm not even blaming them for the January transfer window per se. What I'm saying is this summer is a summer where it's over to them, well and truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. What does so imagine what Turkish wants from this summer.
Right, here we go.
Yeah, what is it?
I want a backup goalkeeper to put pressure on Ramsdale.
All right, there's one.
That's one. I want a dominant centre half, and I mean a no-nonsense, rugged centre half.
Cool.
I want 2 midfield players. I'm sorry, I want a striker, a Plan B striker, and I want cover for Xhaka.
6 players.
But that doesn't mean, if I want 6 players, it doesn't mean I'm going to spend 300 million. You've got to be a little bit clever. You could go to Wolves and remember, he's always wanted Neto from Wolves. He's available for 15 million. You could get someone on a free transfer. I'll trade Tierney. Unfortunately, I'm going to trade Smith Rowe. I'm getting money in for other players. So it's all got to be done.
So is the question then how big this is in terms of spend? How many players he brings in Turkish? I'm not on the 6 players wavelength. I'm on more of a 3 or 4. But 5. As long as they're top, you're 5. On 5. Cool.
5.
Yeah. What positions there would you not?
Either right sided centre back or a right back that allows Tomiyasu to be Saliba's backup.
Yeah.
A 8, a 6. If Xhaka goes, a backup 6. A striker, like Chris said, a Plan B striker that will also allow Jesus to rotate with Saka on the right.
Yeah.
That would probably be my 5.
Yeah.
And I think that's achievable. I mean, like Chris said, there's, Gundogan's a free agent, for example, this summer. So if Xhaka does go and we get 12 million for him, then we can potentially go get Gundogan, upgrade in that position on him, whilst making a bit of money to bring in the younger Rice. It would be shrewd. And, Arteta has been shrewd in the transfer window. Yes, he's had some duds over the years, but when you look at where we're at now, not just in terms of league table and challenge, but in terms of how connected the fan base is with the players and the club again, he's done very well. So I expect him to continue doing very well. But you ask, is it about spending big, or is it about bringing in the number of players and getting them in?
Yeah.
To bring in what we need, and I'm talking about mental characteristics now. You need to spend big money.
Where I am with it is I want a big squad because I think we need it for the Champions League. I think a bigger statement from the Kroenkes and Arsenal is if they were to spend 90 million on Rice and 70 million on Caicedo. If they brought those two in and then say one more, like a backup defender, I'd still think we need depth for Saka. I'd still think we need a little bit more. Maybe the goalkeeper hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea. But I think it'd be such a statement from Arsenal to go, yeah, two of the most sought-after young central midfielders in the Premier League, yeah, we got them both.
Yeah.
That would be like, whoa, okay. Because I'm already seeing Chelsea fans saying there was some rumour report saying that Arsenal were really persisting with Caicedo. Chelsea fans are going, brilliant, that's a free run at Rice. Imagine we're the club that do both.
Yeah.
I think that for me would be almost a bigger statement than if we got like Mason Mount and then Tielemans as on a free and then like 3-4 other players. Even though, yes, we've really padded out the squad with a load of really good players, I think there's something about Arsenal throwing their weight around that I need to see in this transfer window.
Yeah, we need a couple of game changers this year. I think probably since, Aubameyang, Sanchez, Ozil, those guys, when you sign them players, everyone sat up and said, they're going to make a difference. And you look back at last summer, I know we signed 5 players, but only 2 of them went into the team. Turner was a backup, Marquinhos got loaned out, Fabio Vieira hasn't really played that much.
Yeah.
So I think this year, that midfield, because we got 4 midfielders all in their 30s.
Yeah.
You need energy. And like you were saying, Europa League, you can go and make 7 changes and still win. The Champions League, you got to go full strength Wednesday and then come back and play on the weekend and then go again. So we've got to lift the level of player that we bring in now, I think. And I think we have got pull. I think a lot of big players would want to come to Arsenal now.
I think so. The fact that Declan Rice did when a year ago it was felt he was destined for Man United, Chelsea, someone like that who you knew were going to spend the 100 million or whatever. So let's start placing some targets.
I'd just like to say that the things I disagreed with, because there was a lot of what you all said that I did agree with.
Go for it.
The goalkeeper situation, I think when you look at the probability of a goalkeeper getting injured, it's the position that is least likely to get injured and the position where they can play all the big games. I never understood why you drop a goalkeeper to rest them. To me, I played in goal, and the only reason I played in goal was because I needed a rest.
You're not tall enough to be a keeper, sure.
It was five-a-side.
Oh, five-a-side, yeah.
I did just play goal. I got a good jump on me.
What kind of keeper were you? Sort of playing out the back?
Brave.
Wow.
An athletic keeper.
Wow, a lot's changed.
So you weren't Manuel Ammonia.
We don't talk about him here no more.
And the other side of who we've got as a keeper, I don't think there's anything wrong with Turner as a backup keeper. He is an international. Second position, right back. I don't think.
Vader's point.
Yeah. I don't think Ben White is a natural right back. I think he's better either at centre half or in the central midfield, and I think he can give us the cover there. So I think we need a better right back.
Hold on that. I offer you now a quality right back, knowing that White's going to revert to be one of the centre backs. So Saliba, White, Kivior, Gabriel. Do you take that?
Yeah.
Interesting. Carry on.
There is a good right back in the youth team playing at Coventry.
Norton Cuffy.
Yeah.
In the playoffs.
Is he very
as well.
good?
Yeah, I watched him in the pub before the Man City Everton game, but I've watched him a lot playing with Coventry. He's a wonderful player.
Yeah, they're excited about Raul Walters as well. So
Yeah,
I mean, listen, I've got no problem with academy players being the answer, but they actually got to be the answer, like Saka, not they just kind of do a job.
But you don't spend 50 million on White and then have him as a backup, and you don't see White's performances this season and level of consistency and then strip him of his position. So for me,
that's true.
If a right back comes in, Tomiyasu becomes Saliba's backup, Ben White retains his position, and we have an option for rotation with an inverted right back coming in.
But is Tomiyasu going to be here? That's the thing.
Sure.
He's
injury prone.
He looks a great player when he's not injured, but he's injured so often.
I don't think he'll be ready for the start of the season. So that'll be another pre-season.
He's playing in the Asia Cup in January as well.
Yeah,
so he's
away,
away for a few weeks.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, in
I'll
January.
sell him.
I mean, that is another pre-season he's going to miss if he's
Yeah.
not back till about September. Obviously, nothing's confirmed, but yeah. Go on, Julian,
and then
finish your point.
the last position, and this is a positive. We talked about the academy. I still think if he'll sign, they'll put the money towards him. The solution could be an internal one, which is Reece Nelson. Every time I see him come on, he just seems to make such an impact. I don't think we're ready to write him off. He's still a young player, and I think he's been really impressive this season. So he could give Saka a run for his money. But realistically, I think he's going to be off.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he probably will be as well. Actually, let's vote on that. At the time of recording, we don't know. He has been offered a third. Do we think he's staying?
I think he's going.
I think he's going,
Gone.
Going.
Yeah, I agree.
which is a shame.
Yeah,
I like
I
it.
agree with you
about
on
it.
that. Yeah.
I will say I'm not happy about it, but at the same time, I do think his kind of this run we've seen has come a little too late from him. Whether Arteta gave him the opportunities or not, but it has taken a while to see him at his. At
Has
this
he been
kind of
given
level.
opportunity?
Well,
I don't
there's
think
that.
he's started a Premier League game this season.
No, he hasn't.
No.
So
That's why I'm a little bit worried that we seem to be pushing Balogun out the door without possibly seeing him play in the Arsenal first team.
that's another one. Let's vote on Balogun. Do you think he's staying or going?
I think he's going, but I wish he wasn't.
Same. I want him to stay, but I think he'll probably go.
I'd like to see him stay. I think it would be the right move to get him back for a season and then let him perform in the Premier League. And if he does, then if we want to sell him at that point, I think it'd be worth
His
a whole
contract
lot more.
situation, though.
I think
He
we
won't sign one.
he won't sign it. Then if he won't sign it, and we can get decent money, unfortunately, we're probably going to lose him.
The only thing that makes me think, I think he'll probably go, but with him playing for America and the Kroenkes owning the club, going to the World Cup, if he's starting up front for America in the US and he plays for Arsenal, it's a lot of shirt sales and
And he will be starting.
he will be, yeah. So that's the only
Good point,
thing.
mate.
And we've got a pre-season tour there.
Pre-season tour
So
so
perhaps
in
that
New
gets a
York.
chance,
He's
yeah.
from New York, so
I think he'll
I'd
go
like
on
to keep him.
pre-season. I think he'll go with Arsenal
Yeah.
pre-season. I think they'll take their time while they kind of figure out, is Nelson signing a new deal? What other forwards are out there? Have we really just splashed 200 million on Rice and Caicedo? I think they might have to think, you know what, this might just have to be an internal solution, and we're all excited about him, so
Yeah.
maybe there is one. Okay, let's talk about targets, because we've got to set some for next year. And also I think we need to understand whether this year was a failure and in what capacity it was as well. Who wants to start with this?
It's not. Well, never is it a failure. I was saying to Turkish, when we did the supporters club in August, everyone on that table said, top 4, Europa League. If you said to me in August we come second, I would have bit your hand off.
Yeah.
There's no way in a million years is it a failure. I think this season we're ahead of schedule, but what's made it upsetting and nauseating, we were so it's there, and it's been taken away from
But
us.
can I frame it a different way? I used to work in an events company, so I don't know, you'd have to sell however many tickets. Say I had to sell 100. Now, if I've sold 80 with still 5 weeks to go, and they say, you know what, they're selling quick, we've got the capacity, we're going to lift it to 200, but then I don't get to the 200 mark, but I've cleared the 100 comfortably, I've got to 120 or whatever, I've still failed technically to sell those 200 tickets. That was the new remit based on what we were seeing. So you can have succeeded at what was the initial target, but Arsenal tried to respond in January. They brought in 3 players. They recognised the opportunity and they fell short of that. So can both success and failure exist in one?
Glass half full.
Not success, progress and failure can live in one.
Yeah.
I don't think you could ever call it success. I mean, on Chris's point, the season is not a failure. We won't know what this season really is until next season and the season after. Will this season be the one we look at and say the start of something special, or will this season be the one we look at and say, shit, we should have got the job done then? So the season's not a failure, but we did fail come the end of the season because we led the way for so long. We had the lead, and when you look at the games we dropped points in, that was the failure there.
Yeah.
Where it is a failure, it's going to your thing about 200 tickets. The reason why we failed is the reason why we failed last year, because the squad wasn't good enough. We lost players at the wrong time. The whole team pattern collapsed, and we still can't defend properly.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
No, that's a fair point. And in that there are other targets and other things. Addressing the defence, we failed at that. Scoring a hell of a lot more goals, yeah, we did that. Where do you stand on the success or failure this year? Go on, Julian.
Well, if you look at the cup competitions, it was a failure. I mean, you mentioned the Europa League. We didn't even get close. We went out to what I consider to be a poor team, or at best average in a poor league. The FA Cup, yes, we couldn't have got more unfortunate with that draw. It was City away, and they played a really strong team, and we gave them a good game. League Cup, I wasn't disappointed at the time, but still would have liked a Wembley final in hindsight. So as regards the cup competitions this season, absolute failure.
In the season before.
Yeah, and the season before that. The league position, yes, our expectations increased. At the end of the season, we've ended up with nothing tangible. And I've always been one to say that second place is the first loser, which does seem very harsh in the situation. The positives are we've enjoyed this season. Football's supposed to be an entertainment, and something I think is the intangible is the connection that now we feel towards this team. Is that, for many years I went to Arsenal because I've always been to Arsenal. I haven't got much else in my life to go and do on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday or any other particular night. Arsenal's always been the thing that I've done. And I did it because I've always done it, not because I love to go. And I used to spend a lot of the time when I was at the games talking to the person next to me. I wasn't even paying that much attention. I pretty much had apathy. And one thing...
Because of the state of the club.
Because of the state of the club. And what's happened in the last few years since Arteta's arrived is that I've got my enthusiasm back. I get upset now and depressed when they lose, which is a good thing because it got to the stage, and I think I can talk for all of us, it almost got to the stage they lost and we didn't care as much because we were so used to losing. So being angry and being disappointed and being depressed is actually a good thing because the alternative is apathy. And no one really wants that of not caring.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got. And that, for me, is the biggest success of this season, is that we all now care and we've fallen in love again. And unfortunately, love does hurt. It is painful. And that's what we're feeling at the moment, is pain.
Wise words from Julian.
Very wise words.
Very well. Julian.
Yeah. No, for me, I think the season overall has been a great journey. Let's be honest, like from where we were in pre-season, we didn't expect us to be in a title race. I think both the questions you posed of both, there's a bit of reality in both. I think we have progressed. I think, like Turkish said, we'll only know how good this season is next season.
Yeah.
If we build on it and go again, you say, well, that was the springboard to push on. If we stand still and get overtaken, then you haven't learned anything from it. I do think overall that it's a massive what-if season. Because the sad thing about this team, I think for most of the season, they've been the best team in the league. Yeah, most exciting to watch. Even as an Arsenal fan, I think their football's been amazing. But the sad thing is no one's going to remember this season. Do you know what I mean? You only look back on the seasons where you won trophies when you're at a big football club. So I feel for them, I think we should have tried to win a trophy outside of the league. I think putting all your eggs in the Premier League was always dangerous. I think, like Chris was saying, we've been in the Europa League for 5 years and haven't won it. When we went into that, I was almost embarrassed because I thought, well, we'll win this, but it don't mean anything. We haven't won that trophy. So I think they have made progress. They do have to build on it, and we have had some great moments. But I think if I'd have said to you at the start of the season, Liverpool away 2-0 up, West Ham away 2-0, Brighton at home after losing 5-1 to Everton, and Southampton bottom of the league at home, you win them 4, you win the league. You'd have thought we should probably see that out, because I think we would have beat Forest and Wolves if we were still top. So I think we've got to take the positives, but equally there's
that's where the failure comes in.
And that is where the failure is.
And listen, people will probably be watching this, writing comments already saying Turkish is negative, maybe Curtis is negative. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not honest with yourself and look in the mirror and see your flaws, you will never be able to overcome and fix it.
Yeah.
Why do you think Mikel Arteta turned around and said sorry for letting you down? Yes, I've seen on Twitter the positive brigade come out and say, don't worry, boss, you haven't let us down. Just for a moment, just take a step back and ask why he's saying that. He's saying that because he has high standards. He thought he could do it, and he feels like he's let himself down, the team have let him down, he's let the team down, and all in all, he's let the fans down because he has high standards. That's the only way you can succeed, is by being honest and holding yourself accountable.
Yeah. So is it a win next year or failure for Arteta? Oh wow,
it depends what we're winning.
Yeah.
I think we've got to win something.
I
If we're
agree.
sitting here this
Yeah.
time next year having the same discussion, I fear for his long-term job future.
Okay, so let's ask some pretty blunt, cutting questions. Do we think he's the one? I know he's won an FA Cup already, but do we think he's the one to win us more trophies, to win us a big trophy?
Yeah.
Mikel Arteta, you think
Yeah,
he can?
yeah,
Yeah?
What do you
Can.
call the big trophies? Are you saying?
Yeah.
Champions League and
Champions League
Premier
And
League.
the Premier League.
Let's talk those two. Can he, unless he racks up 3 FA Cups in a row,
Mm-hmm.
but is he the manager that can win us a Premier League and a Champions League?
I personally think him with this ownership, the collective, I don't think he wins none of them two. I hope he can. And listen, like I'm saying, and like Turkish says, we're hoping that the Kroenkes prove us wrong and say, listen, if you want Rice, 92 million, that's your player. Because he's got to get his plan A signings. Because it's hard to judge him properly if he says, I want Caicedo, you give him Jorginho. Then you're not getting what you asked for. So how do we know how good you are as a manager?
Yeah.
So for me, if they change and if they think, you know what, we got a little, taster of maybe winning that title now, we're really going to go for it, then maybe he can. But if they carry on how they've been carrying on, 120 million window, when Forest spent 130 million, I don't think that bridges the gap on Man City. So I think a lot is down to them. I think
Fair
if they
enough.
back him properly, then possibly.
I think he can. I think he can. I think he took a team I didn't expect to challenge for the title. And he was. We did it in that show, Behind the Numbers. He had Arsenal on a 100-point pace before the World Cup.
Yeah.
And actually, when we got to 19 games,
50 points.
50 points at the halfway stage. And the thing is, it's funny because I remember thinking, cool, you could even drop the pace by 10
Yeah,
points and
get 90
we should
points.
still win it. And then
Yeah,
they never
yeah.
looked like that. But that's the juggernaut we're up against in Man City. I think he can. I mean, whether it's with this team or whatever, the manager, Mikel Arteta, I guess the question is, do you think he wins the title if he has this Man City team?
Yeah.
I think he does. Do you think he wins it, the title with this Man City team?
Oh, if he was the City manager?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think he would, yeah.
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 Oh, we just got to get the players then.
That's why Curtis mentions the Kroenkes and
Yeah.
couples it up together because
Yeah.
it is up to them. What Wenger, in his 16th year as Arsenal manager, if I was asked, can Wenger win the Premier League? Of course he can.
Yeah.
Will he is another, there's other satellite circumstances that need to kind of fall into place for that to happen. It's similar with Arteta. He's, in my opinion, proved this season he can with the consistency shown, the level, the style of football, even the points tally close to being, one of our highest. I think he's proved he can, but this summer is so vital and it's kind of out of his hands.
All right, we're going to end on a bit of a high. I'm going to get your targets for next season, but I'm also going to ask you the next question because you might want a little bit of time to think about it quickly. Your funniest moment of the season. I think we should just have a bit of end on a laugh. But let's start with the targets first. Has anyone got their targets just at the front?
I know my targets.
Go on.
Challenge again at the very least. Champions League quarterfinals and a trophy.
Challenge Champions League go as far as possible. And the funniest moment,
Oh, the Arteta telling the. I was at that game. Well, we both were.
What was that, Aston Villa?
Yeah, and I remember thinking to myself, what's the ref calling a rolling ball here? And then to see Arteta saying what we were all thinking. Go on. Well, either one of you.
Go on, after you.
Targets would be similar to Turkish. I think we got a challenge again, genuinely challenge for the league. Champions League, yeah, at least quarter-final. I think you look at Inter and AC, no disrespect, I think for a semi-final, that's pretty weak, so if you get the look of the draw, and I think we have to win a trophy next year. I don't think you can just dismiss Carabao and FA Cup. I think it's 3 years now we haven't won a trophy, so yeah, I think he's got to win trophies.
Yeah, Julian?
Yeah, for me, we do need to win a trophy, and I'm not going to accept just the Charity Shield, which we've got a very good chance of being in, but it will be a
What, does
trophy.
second place get in the charity shield?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Ah.
City will win the... Well,
if they win the
if
FA
City
Cup.
win
Man
the
United
FA
fans,
Cup,
I'm sorry.
yeah, if City
I
win,
think they will win the FA Cup.
If City
Yeah.
win the FA Cup, we'll be in the Charity Shield, so I won't count that
Yeah, I'll take that.
as a trophy, but it'll still be a trophy and a good
Do you
day
count
out.
that?
No.
No,
Mourinho.
I'm joking.
Yeah, but I won't take that. I do
Declan
want
Rice
a
lifting the
trophy,
shield.
Yeah.
and I don't see any reason why. And I've said this before: the Champions League is a glorified cup competition, as proven by who's in the semi-final. Those two teams in the semi-final, Inter and AC Milan, in my view, are not as good as Arsenal. So I don't see any reason why we can't win the Champions League if it runs our way. There's a certain amount of luck involved in cup competitions. The Champions League, especially in the format that it will be in next season, which is the last season it will be in that format, we have a good chance of winning it if things go our way. So
Finals at Wembley.
Exactly.
But I don't want Arsenal to go out to some jokers like we have done in previous years in Europa and in the Champions League. Again, challenge again for the title. Win a trophy. I mean, I feel like we don't have that divine right to say, got to win the FA Cup of the Carabao, but I don't want us to just fall out of them again, just like we have done over the years, just Forest away and not playing our strongest team against City, even though we knew they would. Have a go. Yeah. Get a squad, compete on all four fronts. If you compete and then ultimately you're beaten by better teams, it just is what it is. But yeah, all right. Funniest moment of the season, we've had the rolling ball. Anyone else have one they want to put forward?
Has it got to be during a game or kind of within? I think for me, the atmosphere at Spurs and the reception that we all got at Spurs, which was a reflection not only of how good we are, but how poor they are. And for me, football's about two things. It's about the love of Arsenal and enjoying Spurs' misery. And that particular day, we got both.
Yeah,
fair enough. It was very, very funny.
Well, the Conte moment sticks out. I think for me, Arteta on Sky, he wasn't on Sky, but Sky, they're filming the end of the North London derby. He's pulling away to celebrate with the players, and then he sees Xhaka's off for a scrap, and he just has to
get him back quickly.
I've never seen him turn so quick. He's turned quicker than Xhaka ever has in that moment. That was probably more than he ever had in an Arsenal shirt himself. But yeah, anyone else?
Do you know what I like? It wasn't a funny moment as such, but I like Martinelli throwing the boots over the wire at Tottenham. Remember
I like was
that.
It or was it a scarf?
Or was it scarf actually? Just to let them know we've just owned your stadium. That was a good moment.
That was a good moment. Yeah. I don't know if you have on Turkish or.
Mine's probably seeing United, Chelsea, and Tottenham fans shit themselves this season because Arsenal looked like we were, back.
Yeah.
That's probably my funniest moment. Watch-alongs galore from opposition fans.
I mean, it has been funny seeing Matisse run emergency streams.
Yeah, he's one of them. He's one of them.
Because Arsenal nearly won it. But, like you said, we can all keep laughing about this if Arsenal keep going. All right, a big thank you to everyone. Curtis, fantastic. Julian, thank you very much. Chris Hudson, the legend of AFTV, and Turkish as well. Absolute pleasure. Everyone, if you've enjoyed this, go let us know in the comments your thoughts on this season. Go let us know your thoughts going into next season. Declan Rice, Caicedo, is that going to be enough? What did your perfect transfer window look like? How do you feel about the Kroenkes' involvement in this season? Did they do everything they could to get us over the line? Do you think they will do everything they can to get us over the line next year as well? And how would you rate Arsenal's season? I haven't actually asked everyone this, but I'll ask you in the comment section. Let us know. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and go check out all the other content on AFTV.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.